Minister, it's wonderful to have you here today.
Thanks for the invitation.
Congratulations again on your appointment last July as the minister. I know prior to joining government, you were in the French National Assembly. You played an important role in the development of the PISAN framework for one of the first digital asset regulations. And of course, you influential thinker in economics and others. So it's a privilege. But maybe for everyone here, share a little bit about yourself, how you came into this role, and the portfolio of subjects that you're really focused on.
Sure. Well, thanks again for the invitation. Very happy to be here. I really entered into politics 6 years ago. But before that, I was indeed a professor in finance. I was at the Sloan School of Management at MIT, teaching entrepreneurial finance and doing research in various topics, but in particular in the funding of innovation. At that time, Web3 finance-related solutions and applications were not as developed as they are today, but we were already discussing the potential of fintech when I was at Sloan, and I got very much interested in this field. And then when I came back to France to join HEC Paris, the leading business school in France, as a professor in finance, a couple of months after I joined, President Macron was elected based on an innovation-friendly approach, and I was offered to run as a congressman in the district where HEC Paris is located. I decided to go for it, and I spent 5 years in Congress working on economic-related issues, and in particular on the PSAN framework, namely the regulation of crypto assets. In 2022, President Macron was up for re-election, but the Congress was up for re-election as well. So I was re-elected and appointed to government, where I'm in charge of innovation and startups in general, but also the regulation of the digital space, as well as the topics related to inclusion of all our co-citizens in the digital world.
It's an amazing role. We do not have an equivalent role in the U.S. government, and so I envy the French for having such a focus. But looking at the digital divide, dealing with privacy issues, these new European digital standards, strengthening cyber defenses, negotiating with other countries, and it's a lot in this digital arena. And so I think perhaps more governments could learn from the French model. But I want to talk a little bit about in more detail, the work around building a sound governance framework for digital assets. And as I've said, previously, France has been ahead of governments around the world on this, and developed this framework years ago, and it's become, I think, a very, very important foundation for France, but also for others to follow. And maybe you could talk a little bit more about why the French government took this step. And what it really represented, and how you look at that now, and we'll come back to Mika in a little bit, but how you look at that strategically.
Sure, it all started with ICOs. In fact, Bruno Le Maire, who was already the Ministry of Economics and Finance, who was my lead minister in some sense, carried or presented a law called Loi Pacte, dedicated to the growth of startups and SMEs, within which there was a chapter dedicated to the development of ICOs. the development of other dimensions of savings and investments, by the way, because that's also the law in which we created the equivalent of the 401k in France in order to channel the savings from French citizens into longer-term savings product, which has the advantage of allowing investment managers to take more or take longer position, in particular, invest in private equity. But so I was the speaker for this chapter of the legislative package, and our intuition was that France was a good place to trigger the development of ICOs, initial coin offerings. And our idea was to say, let's offer to issuers a visa if they align with a number of principles. This visa will not be compulsory, it will be voluntary. And so issuers taking the visa will show to the public that they comply with some sort of obligation, disclosure requirements, and so on. And by showing good faith, in some sense, they will attract more investors, and we will therefore generate a virtuous circle where you have sound issuers attracting sort of reassured investors. And while we were discussing the legislative package in Congress, it became important to also generate a similar framework for intermediation in crypto assets. And that's how we designed, government along with parliament and in tight connection with the regulators, this SAN framework where you can get registration and licensing that will show that you comply with a certain number of rules, and you establish yourself as a respectable player in the field. Therefore, you're going to be able to attract more and more investors. So there was a way to strike the right balance between the protection of investors on the one hand and enough flexibility to stimulate innovation. And it was kind of the first time that such a regulation was designed in France, and it's paid off quite significantly because we've seen a number of players in the field seeking registration in France, approximately 60 to date. And also it has had a very interesting collateral advantage, which is to sort of bring our regulator to the forefront of these technologies. And so when you're now a player in the field and you have a chat with AMF, with ACPR, you'll find regulators that fully understand what you're doing, what your technology is about, and what are the services you can offer.
It's remarkable, President Macron having a clear commitment to Web3 and blockchain growth in France. It's I think symbolically important as well as we think about this becoming normalized around the world. But maybe you could, you referenced the 60 companies, but with, we're here, it's the beginning of Paris Blockchain Week. What do you see happening in terms of the ecosystem that's now building here in France?
So as I was just telling you before we came on stage, I was very surprised this morning at the Paris Blockchain Week, or surprised or satisfied to see that there was this Web3 entrepreneur that grabbed me by the sleeve and told me, I'm in the US, I now want to move to France, who should I talk to? And I said, well, you should talk to us. But this is just an anecdote, but there is clearly something that is happening. We have 10,000 people expected at the Paris Blockchain Week. A couple of weeks back, we had 10,000 people coming to NFT Paris. We have leading players in the field, such as Sorare, Ledger, Ariani, the Sandbox, that are basically inspiring an entire generation of entrepreneurs, either natively French or establishing a presence in France. We have legacy players that are very conducive to the development of Web3 application. Why? Because we have the strongest financial industry post-Brexit in Europe. We have the strongest luxury brands. And as you well know, the sectors where Web3 has the largest potential to date are the finance industry and the luxury industry. And so all this is building up, and we are seeing now France as the main hub for Web3 in Europe, and probably more broadly, because we're seeing people coming out of the US sometimes to come to France, precisely because we've been smart about regulation, that we have talents, that we have great companies, both sort of incumbents and emerging players, and all this is a great source of satisfaction for us, because it meets the intuition that President Macron had, and that we try to patiently implement over the past few years. So now it's my turn to ask you a question, Jeremy. We're today at the Paris Blockchain Week. Circle is leading the way in the field with a regulation-first approach, which is very consistent with what we've tried to develop. Will Circle be starting the Blockchain Week with some announcement?
Yes, indeed. It's great timing that we're sitting here together. Yes, I mean, I think as is clear, right? France has demonstrated its leadership as a jurisdiction, building an environment for businesses in this field, committing to a future of the internet that is built on this. And I'm very excited that today we're announcing together with you that Circle has applied for regulatory authorization to expand our business in France, working with the AMF, ACPR, as our European home regulator. And we believe this is the right location to build a European-wide business. We believe that the digital asset industry in Europe is going to continue to thrive and grow. And we're very committed to building that here in France. And so we're announcing that. And obviously, with MiCA coming into force next year, we believe that with a strong regulator, with a strong government that is committed to this industry as well, that this will provide the right foundation for us to scale all across Europe and help build this new financial sector and Web3 technology sector.
This is great news, and we are very grateful to all the efforts that you've made, that your teams have made in the discussions with the regulators to prepare for such an announcement. I think it's a super strong signal that the framework that we've built in France, that we've built for Europe, was sort of the right way to go. It's also a demonstration that regulation and innovation can go hand in hand. It's been criticized for many times that the rest of the world innovates and Europe regulates. President Macron, the French government, and the EU now is taking a new approach to regulation, where we regulate to open up markets and to make sure that they're resilient, robust, and that they generate trust and confidence for consumers and savers around the world. So thank you so much for making this decision and for the work that you've made in order to be able to make such a decision. Now, maybe another question, as you know, Jeremy, we are very careful in France, but also in Europe, to make sure that we bridge the digital divide, that we guarantee to all our co-citizens that they can also benefit from all the opportunities offered by the digital economy and the digital space. I know that you also you mentioned it earlier, but I know that you're also committed to bridging this digital divide. Is there anything that you would like to mention at this point?
Yes, indeed. So we have a broad initiative as a company called Circle Impact. And part of that is to bring digital financial literacy and education in this field, and to bring more technical people and business people into this industry. And so we are, committing funds and providing awards to students in a key national university. I believe, in fact, your alma mater as well. And so with that commitment, we're trying to invest in the young people who are going to be necessary for growing and building this industry.
This is absolutely great. We need talents, and talents are everywhere. And so bringing sort of the technology and its applications closer to our higher education system is probably the highest impact investment that can be made. So thank you very much for this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, just reflecting a little bit on, this week, Paris Blockchain Week has sort of come on the scene, and it, I think, is mirrored by the government's commitment to this industry. And I think I'm hopeful that a leading global player such as Circle, who's committed to working with governments constructively to solve the problems, to know that there has to be prudent regulation, that by demonstrating our commitment to France, that we can also help bring a much broader ecosystem here as well. And so we view the relationship that we have with regulators as critical, but also the relationship that we have with the government as a whole as really critical, and are excited to continue to be a major player here in France and throughout, of course, the entire region.
This is great, and I want to maybe highlight another point, which is again to remind everyone that the reason why it's important in emerging markets such as crypto assets to find the right balance and the smartest possible regulation is that, as we're seeing today in other parts of the world, following what happened on those crypto markets, we're seeing regulation, or we're seeing governments rush into regulation that are probably not as well thought as the one that we took the time to think about. And hopefully this will turn to our advantage, and Europe will be well positioned to lead the way in this Web3 sort of revolution that sort of that is very close to our original vision for the internet, which is a place that is open, that is interoperable, that allows for privacy. And I think there is a lot we can draw from Web3 and blockchain-based technologies. And in particular, it's great to see that such an established player, a global leader as Circle, decides to make France their headquarters, their hub for European expansion. It's a great signal sent to everyone out there.
Thank you. And I would add maybe one more topic here, which is, from our perspective, when we think about the opportunity in this industry, of course, you've heard from us earlier about stablecoins, USDC, Eurocoin. We initially introduced Eurocoin last year and made it clear when we announced it that our ultimate goal was to onshore Eurocoin into the European framework, into a regulated framework under what would eventually become MiCA. And our view is that with MiCA, this is really the first major, regional approach to regulating stablecoins, and it puts Europe ahead of most other governments. And of course, France, with its e-money infrastructure, creates a pathway for Circle to onshore Eurocoin and make it a widely available digital euro stablecoin, which we think is very critical to the development of the digital economy, the development of the internet economy, and all the other benefits that come from programmable money. And so I think, this is a pillar for us. The euro is a pillar for us, and being able to build that as a mainstream utility is really critical. And so I think that work sort of started, I think, from France and has now become model law. And so we're excited about developing private sector innovation in digital euro, and of course, believe that the French government can be a great ally in that as well.
And how do you think that the stable coins will help this Web3 ecosystem that is going to be very present this week in the Louvre and in Paris, develop in the years to come?
I think having blockchain infrastructure to mediate financial transactions, to mediate commercial arrangements, economic arrangements, as we move out of just, say, speculating on crypto tokens or speculating on digital commodities, the real world utility value has to come into place. And there, it's businesses and it's households and it's other financial institutions that want to do things with blockchain infrastructure. And of course, the euro is one of the most important currencies in the world. And so having a euro, a digital currency euro that can function on these open networks is just an important building block for any kind of commercial application that may emerge. And of course, the euro interacts globally. This creates an opportunity for a euro to be an export product around the world, and to be used in transactions and cross-border transactions in all of the regions that Europe interacts with. And so we see benefits to the euro, we see benefits to businesses, and then really, bringing online real-world utility in economic and financial applications, and it's such a critical and necessary building block. We do not believe the future of European commerce and finance on blockchains is going to be in dollars. We believe it's going to be in euros, and that is very much what we see.
So you've established presence here in this building for the day. You'll be present at the Paris Blockchain Week for the next couple of days. What are your expectations about this week? What is Circle seeking in its participation at the Paris Blockchain Week?
Well, I think we're here to obviously demonstrate our presence and our commitment to this market. We're here to connect with the broad, both global and European ecosystem that is coming together to educate around the infrastructure that we're building and how it's operating and the opportunities to build with that. We're very, very focused as a company on working with developers. And so the technical communities and the developers that are working and introducing them to the tools we have. And of course, as we think about building here, we want to talk to people who can help us build and grow with us as potential employees and partners as well. So, our entire business built on the stablecoin infrastructure is an ecosystem-based business. It's a platform that people connect to and build on, and it really only grows when there's an ecosystem that's connecting to it and building on it. And so I think for us, multiplying through the ecosystem that's here is the key task that we have.
Well, thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Enjoy this week in Paris.
I'm very grateful and grateful for your support, and excited to see how Paris Blockchain Week goes this week, and surely will be bigger and better every year. So thank you.